Welcome back to the Schoolhouse Series from American Motherhood. I'm Yana Dowdy. I'm a pharmacist by training, but more importantly, I'm a mom of 2 elementary school kids here in Westerville. This series exists because many of us as parents are constantly voting on school funding, levies, and elected officials, but most of us were never actually taught how public schools were funded in the first place. Today, we're talking about one of the most debated and least understood topics in our community: property taxes. You hear things like, my property taxes went up, schools get all my taxes, the city raised my taxes, my home value increased, so the schools get rich. Some of those statements are partially true, some are completely false, and most are misunderstandings of a system that is honestly pretty complicated. So today, I wanted to go straight to the source. Joining me today is Franklin County Auditor. The auditor's office is responsible for property valuation, which is actually the starting point for how property taxes are calculated. So they're one of the most important offices in understanding how your tax bill is created. Thank you so much for being here today, Michael.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to go through just a few questions. I'm going to start off with an easy one, hopefully. So let's start at the very beginning. When someone receives their property tax bill in Franklin County, what are they paying and what is property tax?
So it's a great question. What they are paying are for a variety of services that are voted upon or included by county agencies. So we always encourage anyone that's got questions of where exactly are my property taxes going. You can look on the auditor's website or the treasurer's website and you can see a break. We are very generous in Franklin County, so we vote and support a number of levies. Those levies continue year after year, and so it ranges from senior services to mental health services, the zoo. But as you alluded to, the highest percentage of property taxes goes to funding local schools.
So just to confirm, it sounds like property taxes, they're not just a city tax, they're not just a school tax, they're not just a county tax, but it covers a variety of services.
So the services are going to depend. Voters play a tremendous role, and we'll talk a little bit how it gets calculated, but ultimately it's 35% of the auditor's value with your taxing district. That taxing district is the part where voters get a say. And so if they have a issue on their ballot and they don't want to fund a safety service or a fire levy, they don't have to. But we have seen consistently, particularly with changes to funding at the state level, a lot of going to the ballot and support for these local services.
That makes sense. Thank you. How do you determine what a home is worth? What actually goes into a property valuation?
So the auditor, as you alluded to, plays an important role as the chief property assessor. It's a unique title, considering I also issue dog licenses, but it's an important one because of the calculation to get to the property taxes. So what we're going to do every 6 years under Ohio law is we are required to go out, view every property. We don't go inside any home, but what's going on in terms of condition, where the location is, what other resources and services surround it, lot size, and put it into the formula, and then we'll calculate within that area what we've seen of recent sales. Essentially, what we ask people to think about is if I was going to put my home up for sale today, is the auditor's value aligned with what I would get on the market? The auditor's value is not the market. Should be a little bit below what you would see, but we work very hard and want property owners to work with us to make sure it's accurate. So making sure we have the lot size, bathroom count, other conditions accurate. As I mentioned, we don't go inside the home. So if there's damage because of snow on a roof, that could reduce your value if you were selling it, and that would reduce the auditor's value. But we aren't going to know those things and need to work with property owners to make sure we get a fair and accurate value. Every 6 years is the big one. And then we do a 3-year incremental update. The 3-year incremental update is really just looking at what are neighborhood sales looking like, what's the market in this neighborhood doing, and updating, again, statutorily required to do so.
All right. Thank you. And we just received the dog licenses from your office a few weeks ago. You could probably hear some of my dogs barking in the background.
Well, thank you for complying. Also, so the auditor's office is unique in everything we do is statutorily required.
Yeah.
It is administrative office. So that's the General Assembly said auditor's offices issue those dog licenses. So we do. They say auditor's office every 3 years do a property value update for all properties. So we do. And we walk that fine balance of where people get frustrated of, well, why'd you do it that way? Because the law makes us do it.
It makes sense. All right. So walk me through this one. Is it true that when someone's home value rises, a school district will automatically receive more money? And maybe can you explain how that connects to House Bill 920?
Sure. So that is a lot of my time explaining that your value can go up, your taxes can go down, your value could go down, your taxes could go up. It is so determined by what is occurring within your taxing district, what levies are rolling off, what levies are getting voted upon. But the heart of the matter in Franklin County is if your value goes up, it is not a one-to-one relationship. And part of that, as you alluded to, was action the General Assembly took in the late 70s with House Bill 920. When a school says, hey, voters, we want to raise X amount of money, that is all they are going to receive. So if a school district says, voters, we need $250 million because we want to build X, Y, and Z, when the voters approve that and it's over a 10-year span, that is all they're going to receive as a school district. So no matter what's going on with the valuation, that is not going to increase that levy ask. What occurs is in other communities, there's another thing that the General Assembly passed in the late 70s called the 20 mil floor. Franklin County is not a big 20 mil floor county, although we have about 8% of our properties. And that has to do with school districts that weren't being successful in the 70s passing levies, being able to get a certain percentage. If you're in a 20 mil floor county, before the General Assembly recently took action, it was a little bit a more one-to-one relationship. So what I often share in 2023 was when the auditor's office did our last mass reappraisal process. Historic value increases. The market was hot. Columbus, Central Ohio was one of the most competitive real estate markets. On average, values went up 41%. Had two school levies not passed, 50% of property taxes would have been flat or actually decreased. But because of those two school levies and what the voters approved, that took that 50% number down to about 8%. And that's how much understanding what we call the value of your vote, knowing if there's going to be an issue on your ballot is going to impact that correlation of what changes to your property tax bill you may see. Auditor's valuation, again, plays a role, but it is not going to be the main driver at the end of the day. It's going to be what's occurring within your taxing district.
Okay. So would you say that I can compare maybe House Bill 920 to like my smart thermometer at home, where if, the temperature rises, it's automatically going to turn down the heat to try to keep the temperature about the same in my house?
That is a fair way of putting it. A school district is never going to receive more or less. None of the levying agencies are going to receive more or less. There is an inside millage that may increase, but it is 10%. And so it is not a big driver of any impacts to people's property tax bills.
Okay. I like that analogy. Then I'll use that. Since we're doing analogies, let's talk about what all the property taxes support. And I know we talked about this a few minutes ago, but I'll do another analogy here. I like to think of property taxes as a pizza, and different slices can kind of represent the different services that those taxes go towards supporting. So when someone says a property tax bill in Franklin County, where would you expect those dollars to go to? Like what specific services?
About 75% of that pizza is going to go to the local school districts. Then the next 25% is going to range. We're very generous in Franklin County, so we fund the Columbus Zoo, for example, through a levy. So that's a slice of pizza. There's senior services. That's another slice of pizza. Some other local entities have gone to the ballot and we've approved that. That becomes more slices. So it's a range of services. And then if you're in a township, you'll see a lot of safety services as well. So fire levies, police levies, additional slices. But for the most part, that's going to be the last quarter being shared across the board.
Okay. So now that we have a little bit better understanding of how the property taxes and the property valuations work, why the taxes might go up, where the tax dollars go, let's talk about school levies a little bit. People often say, my taxes went up, but the schools still need a levy. How can both of those things be true at the same time?
So back to the House Bill 920. So the school district saying school districts have to go out and do a 5-year forecast. And when they're doing that with forecasts, they're saying this is what we need to provide services with an expectation we're going to receive X amount of money from federal, state, local resources. When the federal and state in particularly continue to change that model, if they want to maintain that 5-year forecast, or if there's a growth in the district and so they need to build a new elementary school, or it's time to modernize some of their facilities, that's when they're going to come back and likely say, hey, voters, we want the support to pass a new levy. It kind of just depends what's going on within that school district, where they feel their needs are, and how it's allocated through what they were relying on for their forecast to some extent. But it's going to be up to every school district. You've got some school districts, they haven't been on a ballot for 20 years and are committed to whatever resources, or we're not going to go to the ballot. You have other ones, particularly in Delaware County, that are seeing immense amount of growth. They keep going back because they got to build more schools to keep up with the population boom they've seen.
Okay. So why do you think Ohio's schools are so dependent on local property taxes compared to other states?
Great question. Part of it's the law. The General Assembly for decades now have relied on property taxes to be the area in which to fund local schools, allowing voters to have that control at the ballot box. So I believe we're 8th highest when it comes to property taxes. Part of that has to do with the resources we have. A lot of times people look to Florida or Tennessee or Texas. They have tourism or oil money that they're able to offset that increase or reliance on property taxes. And so it's just kind of built over time. Oftentimes people reach out and say, hey, I thought in the 80s, the Ohio Supreme Court said relying on property taxes to fund schools is unconstitutional. That is correct. The Supreme Court at that time did make that determination. They actually did it multiple times in a court case called Duroff v. Ohio. But ultimately, the system hasn't changed. You've seen different efforts with equal school funding formula, but every 2 years you get a new General Assembly. Every 4 years to 8, you'll get a new gubernatorial administration, and they all seem to have different approaches where what hasn't been changed is the reliance on property taxes, particularly to fund local schools. But again, property taxes fund a whole bunch of other services as well. And I know there is a big statewide conversation of, well, we can just get rid of property taxes. That's going to have additional consequences of what services people may rely on or anticipate, that I haven't seen a huge conversation of consequences of no property taxes yet.
Definitely unintended consequences there.
For some folks, it feels like it's intended, but other folks, I think it's unintended.
Yeah.
It is not lost. I mean, I fully, if it ever made the ballot, anticipate the same people to vote to get rid of property taxes to also vote in support of their school district because of the wonderful teachers, services. That kind of vote is counterintuitive, but I fully would expect people to have that kind of gut feeling. Mm-hmm. We'll see how it all shakes out.
So before I close out, I like to offer my guests an opportunity to correct maybe the biggest misconception homeowners might have on property taxes, maybe something you always hear that you just want to set the record straight on, or anything else that you want to talk about.
I mean, the biggest thing I repeat over and over again is your value can go up, taxes can go down, value can go down, taxes go up. While I can say it all day, I can show examples of that. What we've been committed to in Franklin County is we put out an estimator, so people, when they get the next tentative value, can look and plug it in and see that calculation. Now, it holds of what your current taxing district is, so you got to click a couple times saying, yes, I understand there may be something that changes this, but people are always surprised. Value went up, yet somehow my taxes went down. How is that possible? What am I not receiving? Has to do with tax equalization, other factors, what's rolling off within your taxing district. So it is a big confusing piece. We encourage any property owner to reach out to our office, not only make sure the information we have is accurate and fair to be relied upon, but just happy to explain the process, what's occurring, what's not occurring with a lot of misconceptions.
I think we could spend all day talking about the voted millage, effective, inside, outside millage.
I like to talk about dog license too.
It's a complicated topic, but thank you so much for kind of breaking it down for us today. Today's conversation really shows why these topics can get confusing. Property taxes are not a single tax, and increases in home value don't automatically mean schools are receiving a windfall of money. Our goal with this series is not to tell you how to vote, it's to make sure you understand what you're voting on, because informed parents make better decisions for their families and their communities. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you in the next episode of the Schoolhouse Series.